Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are beginning our discussions with guest experts, and these individual one-hour sessions invariably have nothing to do with one another. They're not meant to. They're meant to be on divergent topics. I think it's sort of like starting over again. We have enough to go solid for 2 hours. Michael-Bungay-Stanier I met at a retreat for TED coaches who were working with TED Fellows. And Michael and I both work with TED Fellows. We're kind of intelligent, anointed, highly creative people, somewhere mostly between, 32 and 42 sort of kind of group. Who, huh?
Maybe even a bit younger than that. All I know is I felt old.
I didn't. And yeah, but from a certain vantage point, it's all the same age. So, Michael's one of the few people we will talk to that doesn't per se work with artists, but he certainly works with lots of creative people as a coach, based in Toronto, from Australia. In 2006, I believe, was the Canadian Coach of the Year. Maybe you ought to, I don't know where to begin. How did they let you out of Australia?
Well, I was doing a BA in literature and a law degree in Australia, and it was all going very badly. I was being sued by one of my law lecturers for defamation, which is never a good place to be at if you're trying to finish a law degree. But I won a scholarship that took me out of Australia to England to study at Oxford, where I did a master's degree in modern literature. So I wrote about modernism and Yeats and James Joyce and all sorts of kind of folks like that. But my main achievement was meeting and falling in love with a Canadian who's my wife, and we've been together for 20 years or so. She was doing a PhD in Renaissance literature at Oxford as well. And that meant that I couldn't go back to Australia because I was now successfully hooked up. And there wasn't much back in Australia that was going to beat that. So I got a job in England in the world of innovation and creativity. So actually helping companies invent new products and services for their customers. And I spent some years with that, and then some years in the world of change management, helping big companies go through change, at which stage I moved to Boston. And then about 11 or 12 years ago, left Boston, came up to Toronto, started Box of Crayons. That's a very long answer to your half-baked question there, Paul, but that gives you a quick timeline anyway.
And what does Box of Crayons do?
Well, here's what we say. We say we help people and organizations do less good work and more great work. So helping people focus on the work that matters and realizing that our lives get filled up with all sorts of stuff. How do you focus on what really makes a difference and has an impact? And how do you do a job at kind of managing the distractions from the other place? So it's a combination of self-management, productivity, creativity, impact, effectiveness, with a dash of trying to save the world thrown in.
A dash. And do you find that different kinds of people approach being organized and motivated differently, or is it pretty much the same kinds of things help all kinds of people?
It's a nice question. For a while, I was the creativity coach of a guy called David Allen. David Allen wrote the book Getting Things Done, and it's one of the books that you turn to if you're trying to be more productive and try to manage the overwhelm. It's pretty good. It's got a bunch of effective ways of trying to manage emails and all of that sort of stuff. And so he has a system, and the people who follow GTD, Getting Things Done, are slightly obsessive about it. I mean, it's just, it's not that different from a cult. But one of the things that I do love about David, he says this, he says, look, the system that works for you is the system you should follow, because all of these things are tools that we can use, but all of us will take a basic system and then hack it our own way so it starts working with us. So for me, I'm always about, don't try and find the system that works. Just try and find stuff that works and patch it together and keep looking at and refining your processes. Because I'm not sure what other folks are like on the call here, but I know that I'm a brilliant one for finding a system and then working extremely hard to hack my own systems. So, you know, constantly being aware of what am I doing and how am I doing it and how's this working and am I trying to sabotage myself and how am I doing that? So all of that stuff I think can help.
How about visual artists who are, I mean, are these things decidedly in different parts of the brain?
I don't know enough about the way the brain works to know that that's true. I do know some stuff about neuroscience. But, you know, I think there are some people like me that have a certain part of my life that likes order. Like, I honestly spent the first 30 years of my life mocking my father for his obsessive need to file things. And then after 31 years, I became my father and obsessively started to file things, which was actually quite a shock. But so it goes. We all turn into our parents, I guess, at one level or another. But so I don't think it matters. You know, there's like people who go work with a clean desk, and there are other people who go work with the chaos and enjoy the mess and be able to pull stuff from here and there. It's like what serves you and what serves your process. And that's the key thing here, is whether you spend any time stepping back and going, as I look at this system I have for working, it's not just about being productive or efficient. It might be a way of how do I remain inspired or creative or connected to my muse. You know, as I look at the stuff around me, is it working for me or is it not working for me? The one thing that I would say that I do believe, and you know, you hear this from artists like Chuck Close or writers like Stephen Pressfield, it is this: you show up and you do the work. And some days it comes easy and some days it's hard, but you show up and you do the work. And you know, I do most of my work in the corporate world when I'm out delivering stuff. And I suspect that's different from many of the folks who are here on the call. But, you know, I've just written my 4th book, and I did it by setting myself a timer and working at least 2 hours every day for 45 days until I had the book written. And I wasn't allowed to do other things until I'd done the work. And some days that came easy. You know, I was like, well, I'm done by 9 o'clock. I'm awesome. And some days I'm like, it's 10:30 at night and I'm half an hour into it and I hate myself and I hate my book and I hate my life and I hate where I am and I hate my pencil and I hate my computer. But you show up and you do the work. You know, Stephen Pressfield has a very nice distinction in his book, The War of Art, which I'm sure a number of you will have looked at. And if you haven't, it's a nice book to pick up. Because what he talks about in The War of Art is the battle we all have against resistance. Those little voices that whisper in your ear to say, you know what, you can take the day off, or you can skip it, or it's too hard, or, you know, it gives you the excuse you need to not hold yourself to your own flame. But he makes the distinction between amateurs and professionals. And amateurs wait for their muse and wait for everything to be right and wait to have the right paint or the right pastels or the right paper or the right lighting or the right overalls or whatever. And professionals show up and they do the work day in and day out. And I think there's much to be said about that, which is with that level of creating, show up, do the work, because we all know the first draft is always shit, and we're always doing first drafts. So show up, do the work, and know that it's going to be miserable sometimes, but that's the point. You get through that. What was your question, Paul? And whatever it was, that's my answer, and I'm standing by it.
I don't remember what my question was. All right. Well, fascinating. So, what? I think a lot of artists have difficulty segueing from, you know, the art making process to, you know, I suggest that artists spend 30 to 70% of their time making art and 30 to 70% of their time working on their career and promoting their career and promoting themselves.
Yep.
And I think it's hard for visual artists because there's not enough time to do the different tasks. That little mind in the back that says you can skip this thing. You know, there are certain things in there that invariably are going to get skipped repeatedly, depending on each given artist's affinities. I mean,
okay, Paul, let me interrupt here. Because what I'm going to say here is what you are saying is absolute bollocks. Because you're pretending that it's an artist thing. It's an everybody thing. Nobody likes doing marketing and sales pieces. It's unless you're kind of freaky, weird people, and we're not talking to them, and none of them are on the call, right? So don't give me this, it's an artistic mentality that doesn't like marketing and selling. It's a human mentality that for many of us goes, I don't like to do that. So you have a choice. You either learn to do it and become a successful artist or a successful writer or a successful coach or a consultant or whatever you be, or you decide not to do it, in which case you go, that's fine, I've got a hobby, I haven't got a profession. And either one is a fine choice, but I do not buy into this because I work in the creative arts. I'm particularly not able to market and sell. I go, it's because of, you know, you're vaguely normal about this sort of stuff. So I don't buy that as a premise, but I think I basically buy the point you're taking me to.
okay.
Little soapbox there. I'll get off it.
I sit educated and I accept your opinion. I'll accept your opinion as fact.
As I say, this is a focus group of one person. So to you and to everybody.
Yeah, but you've convinced another person, so that's all right.
Well, I was going to say, just make sure.
So what do mere mortals do to get past the obstacles that they've constructed for them, those immovable objects they've created?
Well, let me ask. Well, let me ask you, Paul. How much do you love the marketing and sales side of your business?
Half.
Half?
Half on a scale of 1 to 10, 5 or 6.
Okay, 5 or 6. Okay, so you're like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. What do you do to market your business?
I write these letters and
yeah, you do a bunch of things. You get out there, you market it, you get word of mouth, you do a bunch of things to try and get it, and you learn, and some stuff works and you keep doing that, and some stuff doesn't work and you stop doing that. So you do a bunch of things. So what I would say is, okay, I've got 1,000 things going through my head here, so I'll just try and untangle them and present them in a way that's not a kind of ranty, ravey thing, and it's actually useful for people listening in. The first thing I think is you make a choice, and you say, look, am I going to step up and am I going to market and sell myself, or am I not? Make a choice, because know that kind of pretending that you're an artist and that you can't do this sort of thing is kind of kidding yourself. We've all got the capacity to learn how to do some basic marketing and sales stuff. Take a course. Learn some of this stuff. It is like learning how to draw or learning how to paint or learning how to do three-dimensional abstraction or whatever you might be going. There's a ton of good stuff out there. Paul, I don't know if you teach marketing a lot in this particular course, but there's a lot of other places out there that teach marketing and sales from a non-sleazy, non-kind of hipsterish type of way. I'll tell you 2 people who I particularly love and who I think do it from a grounded, often spiritual place, which may appeal to some of the folks here. One is a guy called Mark Silver, and his work is called Heart of Business. I think his stuff is very good. There's a lot of it's about how do you get going on some of this marketing stuff. And the other person who I love, Heart of Business.
Heart of Business, okay.
Yep. He is he's a Sufi, so he brings in some of that spiritual mysticism into his stuff. I'm an atheist, and it's a spiritualism that I can stomach, and so take that for however you want. Okay. The other person I think is very good is Molly Gordon. Her stuff is called The Accidental Entrepreneur. She teaches it in a different way. She was an artist herself, so she's got an artistic background. So she's probably particularly or conscious of some of the challenges an artist might face. At another level, there's a guy called Robert Middleton as well, who I think stuff is really good as well. But either way, there are people out there who will teach you how to market, and you can find a path around that. So educate yourself. Learning how to market at a basic level is everywhere, and there's no real excuse to pretend you can't find that. Because if you can read and you can listen, you can figure this stuff out. Then I would say, knowing that this is difficult, find ways to build new habits. Now, there's a ton of great stuff about what does it take to build a habit that's out there at the moment. I'm going to give you 3 good resources for that. So forgive me for keeping to spout names, but hopefully there's some good additional resources for you here. The first is a book that came out about 6 months ago by a guy called Charles Duhigg, D-U-H-I-G-G, called The Power of Habit. The second is a Stanford academic called B.J. Fogg. So the letter B, the letter J, F-O-G-G. And he has a free course called Tiny Habits, I think it's called. And the third person you should be aware of is a guy called Leo Babauta, B-A-B-A-T-A-U, who writes a very popular blog called Zen Habits. And just in the last day or two, he wrote a terrific piece around how to build habits around fitness, but it applies to anything. So start building some good habits around marketing. And here's what marketing looks like. You try something and it works a bit and some of it doesn't. So you stop doing the stuff that doesn't, or you retweak it a little bit and you try something else. And some of that works and some of it doesn't, and you try it again and you experiment to see how it goes. But what builds success is sheer bloody-minded persistence. A habit, in other words. You know, it's not that Paul sends out one email to his mailing list, pays his money and markets through that succeeds. It's the fact that he does it every single time, and over time you build a name and a reputation, and you hear his name 7 times, and you go, okay, I'll check this Paul guy out because I keep seeing him showing up like that. I write a newsletter. I like to write, but you can do it other ways. I have written a newsletter at least once a month for the last 10 years. That's 120 to 150 newsletters. That's a lot of newsletters. Sometimes they've been easy to write. Sometimes I've sat there the night before going, I hate this bloody newsletter. What's the point? But I'm committed to getting it out because that's marketing, and that's part of the commitment. You can see behind me Hugh MacLeod. If you don't know Hugh MacLeod, you should check his stuff out. Not because you will or you won't like his art, but because he does a really good job at marketing himself. And you stalk people and find out the people who are doing a good job, find out what they're doing and copy some of their stuff. There you go. That's Hugh MacLeod calling Paul right now to go, get these people marketing. So there we go. That's what I think about marketing, which is it is a learned skill. It's nothing that some people can do and artists can't do. There's a ton of stuff out there. It just takes discipline. It takes work. It takes persistence, and it takes longer than you hope. Except when it happens really quickly, and you go, oh, look, I've got a sale immediately. But often it goes. You've written 10 blog posts and nobody's read them and nothing's happened, and you go, well, what's the point? And the point is you go, well, what do I tweak? What do I do differently? How do I change this? And how do I keep going to build stuff up and make it work?
Is there any relationship between the obstacles, the hindrance that people put in their own way, their success of getting the word out, and their reticence about expressing themselves, shy, timid, those things? What I tell most of the people in the course is if you believe in your art, you have an obligation to get it out into the world. You have to get off your butt and get engaged.
Well, I do. Do I believe that? I don't. I mean, look at Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson sat in an attic somewhere writing fantastic poetry without any great need to go, I've got to get this out and get it out into the world. Now, it's a different world, obviously, but I think it is perfectly acceptable to go, I create my art for the sake of the creation. The act of creation is what fulfills me. And I don't care if anybody knows about it or sees it or is aware of it or whatever. But if you've got any interest in becoming an artist that makes a living through your art, then of course you've got to get out there and make your art. And I think it can help some people to go, this isn't an act of foisting my stuff on other people who don't want it. This is an act of pointing to some stuff that people are hungry for, to say, look what I've got. Would you be interested in this? Because it's fantastic. And some of them will go, that is fantastic. Let me give you a wedge of cash. And you go, I like this. We should do this more often. Now, if you are shy, as some of us are, I'm not one of those people. I am in some situations, but for instance, I like standing in front of a crowd and talking to a crowd, but you know, lots of people don't like that at all. Find the marketing tools that play to your strengths and disarm the areas where you don't want to play. So if you don't like talking to people, don't pursue a marketing strategy that involves talking to people. Find a different way to connect with people, but you do need to find some sort of way of connecting with people. If you're a hermit that hates people, then you may want to think about trying to outsource your marketing.
Interesting. So, I mean, you don't necessarily have to embrace every kind of social media, or even necessarily social media at all, per se.
Good question. You know, there's so much social media that you can basically spend your entire life pushing small peanuts forward with absolutely no impact whatsoever. So I would go, if you want to pursue, so this is what an acting friend of mine says. If you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, the movie Lord of the Rings, and in the third movie, there's the orc army is approaching Minas Tirith, right? You know, you've got elephants and orcs and all sorts of stuff. And at the head of the orc army is the orc general, a particularly kind of pink, lumpy, loathsome-looking guy. Well, that is my friend Mark. He and I do a ton of work together. He's actually better looking than that in real life, you'll be happy to know. And he says this, and I think it's a really powerful kind of motto for life, and it works for marketing as well, and it's this: make a choice, keep it clean, go big. Make a choice, keep it clean, go big. And one of the things that happens with marketing is that there are lots of channels that you could pursue, and you can kind of dissipate your energy across too many channels. So part of what you might want to be thinking about is, where can I really show up? What channel will I really commit to? And what does that look like? And how do I go big and really make a stand on that? So if you go, Twitter is the place that I want to dominate. Show up and dominate Twitter. It's like, get in there, get on lists, connect with people, Twitter regularly, really go for it. If you want to go LinkedIn, I don't know why you do LinkedIn, it's a kind of business network, but LinkedIn or Google Plus or YouTube, you know, become the YouTube artist. And if you're going to do it really well. Don't just do a same old talking head video, but do something that is like V Hart. I don't know if you've seen the videos of V Hart. She does math videos. She's brilliant. She's interesting. She's different. And she gets lots of people watching her stuff. So it's like, find your channel, and then as with your art, go, how do I be enough the same that people know what hell's going on, and how do I be a little bit different and interesting so that I'm not just the same old, same old. One of the things that kills me about a lot of the blogs I see is I go, they all feel that, you know, in my field, business field, they all feel like they're saying the same thing in the same way at the same time with the same number of bullet points. And I'm like, oh, TBU, true but useless.
So
Again, I have no idea what your question was, Paul, but I feel like I've answered it well.
You did excellently. So do you sift through all this information? I mean, I'm trying to look at it from both sides of the equation in terms of how does one choose how they're going to market themselves, and then I guess that's the most important thing. They need to be exposed to it and then deal with what resonates.
Right. So I think it takes a bit of research to go, well, who are the people I'm trying to connect with, and where do they hang out, and how do I find a way of reaching them in the places they hang out? So if none of the people who are likely to engage with your art you think get engaged in Twitter, then I really wouldn't be spending much time on Twitter because it's a little masturbatory, right? If it's like find your people and go there and engage with them. And if there's in terms of how big a crowd you need, there's an article, and I think a guy called Kevin Kelly wrote it, I can't be sure. It's called 1,000 True Fans. 1,000 True Fans. And it speaks to the fact that you don't need a big tribe to generate a pretty good living. You need to find the right people. I have a marketing list of 20 or 25,000 people, and my friend Mark, who I mentioned, who runs Heart of Business, has a marketing list of, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 people. So, being men, I spend a lot of time mocking him for the size of his list. We do this kind of like, how big is your list? Well, let me tell you how big my list is. You have a tiny list, Mark. But the truth is, off a mailing list of 5,000 or 6,000 people, he makes easily into a six-figure salary income each year, because he knows how to market to them, he knows how to keep them engaged, and he knows how to give them what he wants. It takes work to build that list. It takes work to engage that group. But what he has is in that list of 5,000, he has 3,000 true fans who keep showing up and keep engaging in the work that he does.
It makes a big difference. You don't necessarily feel equally motivated every day you get to work or whenever you sit down, wherever it is, and begin to work. You sort of just do it. Is that right?
Oh, no. I'm talking about everybody else. Me, I'm always massively motivated. I'm always happy. I'm always extremely successful. I actually never have a bad day. But I've heard other people have it. So I just thought I'd kind of slightly patronize everybody else by talking about it. But I've heard that that's what happened to you people. You lesser humans. Yeah,
that's it.
Sorry, what was the question? Of course, I have terrible days. I have days where I sit there going, I am useless. I tell you what, one of the key tools that has helped drive my success, as much as I've had success, and I've had some good success, is that I have a mastermind group, a brain trust, we call it. 5 or 6 people. We work in similar fields, but we're not direct competitors of ourselves, but similar fields. And we check in with each other 5 or 6 times a week on a web meeting board, private web meeting board. Primarily to say things like, this is what I'm up to today. Here's my one key task today. One person checks in and every day she goes, here's my HVA, my high value action. She articulates the key things she's going to do each day. She writes down a couple of other things that she'd like to do, but her HVA every day, and next day she reports out on how she did against her HVA. So we check in, and there's a bit of banter and there's a lot of support. We talk on the phone every 2 weeks, and we basically coach each other and support each other and mock each other and stuff. But it's a supportive, coachy type atmosphere every 2 weeks. And then once a year for 3 or 4 days, we gather. They're mostly on the West Coast, so I tend to fly over to the Seattle area. And we spend 4 or 5 days going deeper into our work and the support we want and the engagement we have. Now, one of my mastermind group is a woman called Jen Loudon. She is known as the Comfort Queen, or she was anyway. She has actually created a very small course program on how to build a mastermind group. So if a mastermind group is something that sounds interesting to you or useful for you, that might be worth checking out. I'm not sure if her website is jenniferlouden.com or jenlouden.com, but it's one of those two. And Louden is L-O-U-D-E-N. But that mastermind group's been really good for making me articulate my goals, but also getting support and encouragement of those goals on those days that I feel down. Not to mention, I have my wife works in the business with me, you know, which, as you can guess, is mostly a blessing and only sometimes a curse. And so she is supportive and encouraging. Perfect. Thanks, Paul. That's great. So there we all are, looking happy. I have a coach, Ernest, who's worked with me for the last 5 or 6 years, and he helps keeps me honest. We work together every 2 weeks. I actually have another mastermind group that is based entirely in Toronto. We meet once every 3 months to kind of do a what's your next 90 days. I mean, I spend a lot of time getting and asking for support because I know if I'm just by myself, I kind of vanish into my own head and up my own backside with kind of, well, who knows what. So I'm constantly trying to get that support and encouragement, both to help me see repeating patterns about the stuff I keep doing, also to remind me that things aren't as bad as I think they are, and to help me celebrate when I get a success.
So it's kind of to keep you on task. It's kind of like Jiminy Cricket or something.
It's honestly, I mean, I think that is certainly part of it, Paul, and that is a big part of that for it. But a big part of it is after 5 or 6 years, these are people who just know me very well. So when I come in and I go, as I did on our last call, oh, I feel useless and I'm not getting any traction on anything and I'm faffing about and I'm out, wah. They go, yeah, this is what you always do. This is the fallow period before you have a burst of creativity. So of course this is what you're doing. And you also have a little whinge and a complaint about that, about this time as well. So it's just people who can keep me grounded as to what's really going on. So keep me on task, but also don't let me indulge myself in sad victim fantasies, but also do it in a way that's supportive and encouraging and very positive as well.
So in this one group, you're doing this like daily?
Well, we check in on a website daily.
Tell me about this website. Where are you? Who is this?
Well, one of the members hosts it, so she does it privately. But you know, you could easily set up something like a private group in Facebook.
Right.
So if you have access to Facebook, you can set this up and just make it work that you just check in with each other like that. So, or get a Google Plus circle and get something set up on that. So there's 1,000 different ways that you can set up those forms of online connection pretty easily, I think.
So it's not voice communication daily, but it is some form of.
No, it's not. It's just on the web. And, you know, and sometimes it's just enough going, you know, I'm just checking in to say I've read everybody's entries for the last week and you're all awesome. I don't have time to write much at the moment, but I'm still alive. You know, it can be that.
Did you know these people before they were part of this master group?
I didn't. Well, I did. I knew one of them. I knew Molly, who I mentioned before, Molly Gordon, and I only knew her very peripherally. I'd been a fan of her work. I went to a conference and I made a point of having a drink with her when I was at the conference, or a glass of something to eat, I think. And she and Jen decided to form this mastermind group. And Molly asked me, and I got to meet the others through the mastermind group.
And where are they? Are they all in North America? Are they all?
They're in. 3 are in the Seattle area. One's in Portland, and one's in Southern California.
And you meet up about once a year?
Yeah, once a year we get together for 3 or 4 days. And a lot of it's just hanging out and having fun. But we do kind of deeper work with each other as well. You know, one of the advantages we have is that we're all very good coaches. So we can actually take each other into kind of more challenging places that require a bit more time than we might get on the phone otherwise.
Cool. Let's just some people have some questions. I think MacArthur had one. MacArthur, where did you go? Maybe you didn't. Did you have a question, MacArthur?
Yes, Paul.
All right, your hand was up. Still is. If you could take it down, that'd be cool.
Okay.
Does anybody else have a question of Michael?
How did
Hi,
I get
Jen.
so much success when I'm still so young and good looking? Hard to say.
I don't remember that question being asked at all. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Ginny Kruger asked me. Thanks, Ginny, for that question.
Hi.
Worried.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how you doing, Jen?
Oh, hi. The first book that you mentioned, I think it was called, is it In the World of Art?
The first book I think is by, might have been Stephen Pressfield. It's called The War of Art.
Ah. Okay.
Sorry. You can blame the fact I have an Australian, English, British, American, Canadian accent and a speech disability, so it's almost entirely my fault.
No, I have a focusing ability, so I'm sure it's mine. I'm sorry, what was that? No, I'm just kidding.
Cool. Thank you, John. So did you have specific training to get into this field, Michael?
By this field, do you mean standing up and pontificating on anything you ask me, or something more specific?
Pretty much getting paid for standing up and
pontificating.
Huh?
I'm just a natural pontificator. Well, I had training getting into the world of coaching, but a lot of the stuff I've learned, I've been inclined towards, like facilitating or standing in front of a group. You know, I've been doing that one way or another most of my life. As a 3-year-old, my mother would take me out to a supermarket, and I would wander up to strangers and go, "Hi, my name is Michael. I can hop. Would you like to see me hop?" And I'd hop around. "I can run. Do you want to see me run?" And I would run around. So I've been doing that kind of performing for quite a long time now. But other stuff like learning how to coach is more, you know, there's more technical skills around that. Marketing stuff, I've learned it. You know, I just bought I just spent $2,000 investing in a guy called Brendan Burchard, who he runs something called the Experts Academy. And he's really worth following because he's really good at marketing. I follow a bunch of people on their blogs and stuff and on their mailing list just to watch how they market. I don't really want to buy their stuff, but I really want to see what are you doing and how are you hooking me in and how are you not hooking me in so that I can copy you and learn from it. You know, I can't remember who said this, Paul, but somebody said originality is just unacknowledged plagiarism. I'm sure somebody else said, you know, bad artists copy, but great artists steal, or something like that. I mean,
Yep.
who knows? And so too is marketing, which is like there's a lot of good people doing some interesting stuff out there. Find them, follow them, and go, huh, I could do that. Why don't I try that?
I do that a fair amount. Can you explain something about what coaching is and how you go about being a coach? What does that mean?
So what coaching is having a wise guide by your side to help you pursue your goals. That's the broadest definition I can give you. So it's somebody who can help you get insight, move from insight to behavior change, move from behavior change to impact on the world. How you become a coach is pretty simple. It's as simple as this. You go, I think I'm going to be a coach now, and you just tell people you're a coach. It's a bit like becoming an artist. You go, you know what? I've decided I'm an artist, so I am now an artist. How to become a good coach is you typically do some training and you get clients and you practice and you find the people you'd work best with, like becoming an artist. You practice in a range of fields and you go, you know what, drawing not so much, but you know, collages, that's where I totally rock. That's where I'm going to focus on, and you practice that skill. And after what Malcolm Gladwell would say was your 10,000 hours of work, you become masterful at it. The true art of being a coach, when it boils down to it, is being curious and asking some good questions, and stop giving people advice. So you can see that the last hour or so of me just giving ranty advice to everybody is almost the opposite of what good coaching is.
All right, let's go for some more advice. What are the kinds of things you think visual artists should do to more efficiently get their name and their image, i.e. their artwork, out into the world?
Well, the first question I have is, what's the big goal that you want? Is the goal you want to be well known, or is the goal you want to have a good income?
For most people, it's a good income, but for a lot of people, it's to be well known, and for some people, it's one's a byproduct of the other.
Right. So, deciding which of these goals really matters to you makes a difference to what you do and how you do it. But if you really want a good income, having a rich private collector become your buddy and buy your artwork at $10,000 a pop is a far better use of your time than going, I'm going to get an awesome Twitter account and really rocking and rolling. So deciding how to do this is part of it. You might know the saying, if I build it, they will come.
Yeah.
That is a lie. If you build it, they will not come. Nobody's going to come if you build it. I mean, sure, somebody might come every now and then, and you might get lucky, but mostly for everybody here, if you build it, they will not come. So you decide how you're going to market your stuff. Who are you trying to create an impact with? Who are you going to try and create? Where's your market? And how do you target that? So if people here are going, look, what I want is my Hugh McLeod here started off drawing cartoons on the back of business cards. And for a while, his big business was, you buy business cards with my drawings on them because they're funny and interesting and they make you laugh. He subsequently changed his business model. Now he does these beautiful prints on beautiful paper and stuff. But you might go, look, I notice that big corporations buy artwork and they have a budget for it. And so what I'm going to try and do is find my way into the corporate art market. And I'm going to find the people who buy and sell corporate art. And I'm going to work that angle until every single person there knows me. And I'm going to find out what they want, and I'm going to help them with stuff, and I'm going to build relationships with those people. And you know what? I'm not well known, but I'm really well known to the people who buy corporate art, of which there are 80 in the whole of North America. Because these are people who buy corporate art, and they have a budget of more than $1 million a year. And I'm going to know every single one of those 80 people, and they're going to love me. And I'm going to make some sales like that. Or you could say, so, the whole gallery system, that's tough to get into, but it might be really worth focusing on. So I'm not going to focus on, I'm going to get into any gallery I can in Chicago. I'm going to say, look, I'm going to specialize in getting into galleries that serve left-handed Lithuanian billionaires. And that's the galleries I'm going to really focus on, because I think left-handed Lithuanian billionaires are truly going to be my target market. I'm going to figure out what sort of art they want. I'm going to figure out what sort of art I deliver. I'm going to figure out where the overlap is, and I'm going to concentrate on that, and I'm going to pursue that. It's either going to work, or it's not going to work, but that's what I'm going to try and do. I think, and this may not be great, and this may not, it's almost certainly not true, or at least not the whole truth, is I think it can be really useful to understand who your target market is and what they want. And I think there you go, and this is what I'm going to do for that group. Because screw them, I'm going to do what I want anyway, but it's somehow useful to be influenced by that. You know, a mentor of mine said you need to have the right combination of madness and measure. Measure is the, you're not so weird that I'm just not interested. Madness is you're different enough that you're interesting. So, you know, my work is in the world of the corporate world, right? Fortune 1000 companies. My company is called Box of Crayons. There are many people in the corporate world who haven't the least bit of interest in ever working with a company called Box of Crayons. When I run the training sessions I have, people walk in and there are no tables. And a lot of people vaguely freak out because they're like, I can't do this without a table. What are you doing here? And I'm like, I know this is freaking you out, and that's exactly what I want. Because I know the rest of my stuff connect and is useful and valuable and practical for the people who are in the room here. So I mean, there's no easy answer to that, but it's about choosing a target. It's about staying true to your voice while still serving that target. It's about pursuing something doggedly until you decide you have to give up and try something else.
Interesting. Kind of somewhat different than how I work. Nancy, did you have a question or a comment you want to make?
It's difficult to describe, but I have a different problem related to what we've talked about, and I wonder if there are possibly other women who go through this additionally. It seems that I get pulled off target because of my to-do list. So I'm tremendously efficient with things that aren't related to my work. So everybody knows I'm efficient, so I get more tasks. For instance, now I'm getting a new studio together. It's extremely important that this thing functions well for me, and I'm spending time talking to an electrician, finding out in this new studio where is the locker, the storage locker, you know, shit like that. And I hate it, and yes, I do feel it's necessary. But this to-do list is running my life.
Yeah.
And I crave doing my own work, and there's all this crap in the way.
Got it.
Thanks.
It's clear to me, Nancy, you are not alone. So here's how I think about it. So the book I've had the most success with is a book that came out 3 years ago called Do More Great Work. Stop the busy work, start the work that matters. And it's got 15 or so exercises in it to help you figure out, well, what is my great work? And by great work, I'm not talking about the quality of your work. I'm talking about the meaningfulness and the impact of your work. How do I find it? How do I start it? How do I sustain it? And one of the things that you and many of us face is I'm overwhelmed by all the other stuff that I have to get through. What I would call your good work, your day-to-day stuff that you've got to feel you've got to get through to stay on top of life. And the thing about good work is there's always about 10% more good work that you can handle. And just because you're efficient doesn't mean it goes away. It just means it fills up faster. So it sounds like you're efficiently getting more and more stuff coming at you. So there's a couple of things to think about. But fundamentally, at the heart of this, Nancy and everybody, is this. What are you willing to say no to so you can say yes to the work that really matters? That's the question at the heart of all of this. What will you say no to? Because a yes is meaningless unless it comes with a no, because all of our lives are busy. All of our lives are full. And here's one of the ironies, if you like, of doing great work. If everybody is happy, you're probably not doing your great work.
Funny.
So here's a question I'd be asked. Who are you willing to piss off, Nancy, so that you can truly stay focused on your art? Who are you willing to disappoint, let down, have them think less of you because you're going, I'm making this choice, not that choice?
You know, one of the things I took away from our discussion last week, Michael, was the idea of, I thought it was with you, of putting time for ourselves on our calendar and on our to-do list. Like Tuesday, 1 to 5, me. And, you know, make it inviolable so that, is that the right word? So that, you know, it's your time and your work, you know, you are on your to-do list. You know, I think it's fine to make yourself your own priority.
Yeah, I mean, it is. That's a whole lot, in my experience, that's a whole lot easier to say than to actually do. Because I, block out my calendar, 1 to 5, Michael's to-do time. And then I look up and it's 6 o'clock and I've been doing my email for 7 hours or something ridiculous. So I find that hard to do. I do all sorts of things to try and set up systems. So in terms of brain stuff, we have very little, there's basically 2 parts to your brain. This is a very simplistic version of neuroscience, so forgive me, everybody who knows more than I do, which is probably most of you. Well, one way to think about it is this. We have an unconscious brain, huge, powerful, actually drives our entire life, and then we have a conscious brain. Brilliant, language, creativity, easily exhausted, a limited supply. Our willpower lives here. Our willpower is easily exhausted. They do all sorts of interesting tests around people. Like, for instance, they do tests with college students, and they put a plate of cookies in front of college students. And some, they say to them, you're allowed to eat the cookies and then you do the test. And others, they say, you're not allowed to eat the cookies and then you've got to do the test. And the ones who didn't eat the cookies did worse on the test because they used up their conscious brain trying to resist the cookies. Right? We get tired really easily trying to do that. So one of the things that works for me is 2 things. The habit piece I've already talked to you about, because what a habit is an unconscious behavior. A study from Duke University said that at least 45% of our behavior is habitual, unconscious, which is pretty disconcerting when you start thinking about it. It means that for at least half your life, you're not quite sure who's in charge of this person called you. But what the good news about that is if you build good new habits, there's ways that you turn positive behavior into just an instinctual thing that you do rather than a big effort that you have to force yourself to do. So I mentioned B.J. Fogg before, and part of his insight around his tiny habits, and it's a really good insight, so you'll find this useful. The first is attach the new habit to an old habit, a strong anchor that's already there. So as an example, finding me time, I want to meditate. For at least 10 years now, probably closer to 20 years, I've been saying, I want to meditate. For the last 20 years or so, I have been successfully failing to meditate day in and day out. I suck at building it up as a meditation. I mean, let's not even get into how bad I am when I actually try and meditate. Sitting on the damn cushion is hard enough, right? So, here's what I do. In the morning, and this is part of my ritual at the moment, I will undoubtedly hack this ritual sometime shortly and I'll have to do it all over again. But this is the ritual that works for me at the morning. One of my goals this year, and I want to be more provocatively creative. That's what the goal I'm setting myself. So, part of my commitment is to do at least 25 minutes provocative creating in the morning. So the first thing I do is I get up, I feed the cats, clean the litter, do the sort of morning chores. I have on my computer something called Focus Better. It's a little app. I think it's free. Maybe it's $1. And what that does is it counts down for 25 minutes before the bell goes off and it gives me a 5-minute break. This is the app I used to write my book recently. I did it in 4 hours. I did 2 hours a day in 25-minute cycles. So I do 25 minutes run by the app. So I don't try and guess what 25 minutes is. I just sit down on my computer, I press go, and I write until my 25 minutes is done. I then get up, because I've got that habit going, and I make a commitment after the bell goes. My commitment, that's my strong anchor, is to sit on my meditation cushion for 1 minute. This is the other genius part of B.J. Fogg's work. He doesn't say, do a really big thing after that. He goes, do a simple thing that will take you about a minute to do, maybe less. One of his habits, as an example of this, is after I brush my teeth, I will floss 1 tooth. That's his commitment. And he goes, I can floss a tooth. But you guess what happens, right? he flosses one tooth and goes, ah, yeah, screw it, and he flosses the rest of his teeth. I sit on my meditation cushion for a minute, and I go, oh, screw it, I'm here anyway, what the hell, let the monkey mind commence. And I meditate for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, depending on where I'm going with that. So I built in structures to help me make this stuff habitual and unconscious as much as possible. Because if I just go, I'm going to clench my buttocks tighter in the hope that that's going to make me do this, it's just not going to work.
Have you tried that?
You should feel my buttocks. They're like steel. Seriously, if I could stand up and show them, globes of glory, Paul. That's what I'm saying.
I believe the American authorities were watching.
Yeah. You're just lucky I'm not wearing Lycra, because if I was wearing Lycra here, woo, it'd be a hot stuff.
You know what? We are lucky. David, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Michael. I had a couple of questions for you. I really am intrigued by this this group, this getting grouped together.
Yeah.
And you said you have a couple of groups. I was wondering if do you find a benefit for having some groups that are very diverse, and then also maybe having a verse of, you said you had a lot of people who were in the same field or similar fields, but not competitors. Do you have a group of people that are like kind of much more wildly divergent, or do you feel like that's helpful?
Really good questions, David. The group I have in Toronto are much more business focused than my West Coast mastermind group. So they're a bit more metricsy and money focused. They're also local, so that we can go to a pub and have a beer and drink and pretend that this is being a mastermind group. So it's got a number of benefits to it around that. I think you need to have a couple of things that are the same. You need to have an agreed level of transparency and a willingness to, an agreed amount of willing to give and take. Because it doesn't actually work if somebody shows up and goes, I'm just going to show up and give people advice, but not ask for help or be vulnerable or take advice. So you need to do some what I would call social contracting about what are the rules of the road about how we work here. We've had a few people come in and leave the group because they didn't kind of fit. I think it's useful to have your businesses somehow at a somewhat similar level. You know, when we started this mastermind group 8 years ago, we were all, you know, approximately the same place in our business in terms of growth and development. Since then, some businesses have really taken off and become, you know, really pretty financially successful. Others have become less financially successful, but we doesn't feel, for the most part, that we're that different in terms of where the growth cycle is for our businesses. So we've got that commonality. And we, in both my mastermind groups, we have a sense of humor, a shared sense of humor. You can probably guess that there are vast numbers of people in this world who absolutely do not share my sense of humor. Enormous numbers of people who don't think I'm funny at all. I mean, they're mad because I'm hilarious. I'm one of the funniest people around, obviously. But
I find it hard to believe.
I know. But having a shared sense of humor, I think, is it's a bit like people who you date. You actually want somebody who thinks you're funny, or else you're off to a rocky start.
Great, thanks. Hey, the other question, I wanted to also ask you, in terms of time management and like setting a time goal that says you're going to get, you know, so much done. I've heard some people say they like to also have an end time. Like it's important that their time that's going to be creative or for whatever task has a beginning and an end. Do you do that as well?
Well, I mean, I set myself these 25 minutes. What I find is when things aren't working for me, I create increasingly complex systems in an attempt to try and get me to behave. And when things are working for me, they're simple rather than complex, because I can hack complex, but it's harder for me to hack simple. So when I go, I'm just going to write for 25 minutes, it's hard for me to find a way around that. If I was like, I'm going to write from 10:25 to 11:05, I'd then be going, well, technically it's 11:05 now in Chicago, even if it's not 11:05 Canada, Toronto, so it's kind of the same, and it would go hellishly wrong. That's what works for me. But as I said right at the start of this, so much of this stuff is get out there, try stuff out, give it a good go, but find your own system, because nobody's system is going to be the same.
We might be done with questions, Michael, and maybe it's time to move on regardless. Ginny had one, I thought, and now I think she doesn't, but I'm going to find out. Ginny, did you want to say something?
No, I just was saying that I was thinking it's not really a question, but something that's really worked for me is the 15-minute rule, which sounds similar to your 25-minute gig. And it's like, it's helped me a lot over the years. I'm just going to my studio for 15 minutes, and then it just evolves into hours usually. So it's like my little trick to get myself down there. So,
here's one thing. Thank you, Jenny. I think you're right. Here's one thing I do know. The way we're designed, we work on cycles of energy. So we have moments of peaks and moments of troughs, and you know that yourself from wanting to have a nap in the afternoon. So there's a bunch of good things around there around productivity. One is typically most people have a 90-minute cycle of productivity. So work for 90 minutes, then take a good break, like 25-minute break, half an hour break, and you'll be much more able to maintain that through the day. The other thing that they've shown studies on is one of the most powerful things you can do to maintain your productivity during the day is take a 20 to 28-minute nap in the afternoon.
well, that's I don't know if I'm still on.
You are.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because I did have a college mentor who told me that. Don't beat things to death. You're in there for 90 minutes and you're out. And so I guess that was really good advice. And now I'm just going to add that nap to it because that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and what's great about scientific studies is if you look hard enough, you can always find the one that justifies the behavior you want.
That's right.
So I drink wine, eat dark chocolate, and sleep a lot. And I go, this is scientifically proven to help me be more productive. No, seriously, here's the result.
Thank you, Michael.
Pleasure, Jenny.
Cool. And anybody else want to say anything? Oh, I got some more hands up. No, those people have asked. All right, Michael, I think we're going to call it done. And I find this really interesting, and I think what you do must be really enjoyable. And I mean, I hope you get new problems, and it's not always the same old ones, and you're not always just getting people to the same high level, but you're getting some people to the higher level.
Right.
I really appreciate your input. Let me unmute you so that I can applaud profusely. Anyone else?
Michael, thank you, everybody. Lovely talking to you. Good luck with it all.
Thank you very much.